Chapter 1. Has Fu Jing Zhou kissed you like this? Xiangcheng. Inside a quiet and elegant café. A soft voice, carrying a hint of coolness, shattered the tranquility. Let's get married. In a corner by the window, the woman's beauty was rare in the world. Her fair and delicate fingers held a spoon, gently stirring the coffee in the cup. Her long eyelashes cast a faint shadow on her eyelids. The man across from her had features as radiant as the moon in the sky and as pure as snow on the mountains. His deep black eyes showed a faint trace of surprise upon hearing these words. But it disappeared in an instant without a trace. Dressed in luxurious casual attire, he casually crossed his long legs, leaning against the corner of the seat, and looked at the woman across from him with interest. Upon hearing her words, he responded with a barely perceptible light chide. His cold and thin lips curved into a meaningful smile. Marriage? His long and well-proportioned fingers lightly tapped the table, his tone casual. Between you and me? Su Wan Ci raised her gaze to look at him, her red lips slightly closed. Yes. Lu Yu toyed with his fingertips. A hint of a smile in his eyes. Instead of asking why she chose him, he calmly said while meeting her gaze. Miss Su, the whole of Xiangcheng knows that I, Lu Yu, am renowned for not easily giving my heart. If we were to marry, it wouldn't be a marriage in name only. Su Wan Ci remained silent for a moment, her lips pursing slightly at the corner. Lu Yu observed her reaction and gave a light, indifferent chuckle. Without another word, he stood up and walked away. A slight furrow appeared on Su Wan Ci's brow. As he left the café, she followed him. In the corridor, she caught hold of the hem of his garment. He halted his steps. Just as Su Wan Ci was about to speak, the man suddenly turned around, pinning her wrists against the wall. The next moment, he closed in on her. In the woman's bewildered gaze, he fiercely pressed his lips against her red lips. Su Wan Ci's eyes widened suddenly. She subconsciously tried to pull her wrists away, only to be met with an even stronger grip. The plundering between their lips became even more intense. The air in their mouths, along with the breath in their lungs, seemed to be drained away. She held her breath, but he left her with no defense. After a while, when Su Wan Ci's tongue felt numb, he finally released her. Lu Yu held her waist, which he had gently grasped, and their softness and firmness pressed closely together. His fingertips stroked the slightly swollen corner of her lips, his deep black eyes resembling an abyss with no visible bottom, unable to be penetrated by any light. He licked his lips, seemingly unsatisfied. His hand, which had held her waist, tightened, pulling her into his embrace. Bending down to look into her eyes, he asked deliberately, Has Fu Jing Zhou ever kissed you like this? Gasping for breath, Su Wan Ci steadied her breathing.
Although she maintained good control over her facial expressions, the slight trembling of her lips betrayed her emotions. Lu Yu persisted in seeking her answer. Pressing his lips against hers, he kissed her again. Su Wan Ci's entire body went soft, and the misty water in her eyes broke the coldness on her face, revealing a hint of tenderness. Lu Yu asked again, Has he kissed you like this? Su Wan Ci turned her head slightly, her trembling lips forming a single word, No. The man raised an eyebrow. Embracing her waist, he walked briskly towards the exit. Su Wan Ci's legs went weak, unable to keep up with his pace. Lu Yu. The man glanced sideways, then bent down and lifted her horizontally, striding out again. 2 words escaped his thin lips, spoiled. Su Wan Ci suppressed the nearly escaping cry of surprise, her hands wrapped around his neck, her expression tinged with some curiosity. You. However, just as she was about to speak, she heard the deep voice of the man resonate above her head, Do you have your ID? She froze, unconsciously tightening her fingertips. I have it. Lu Yu placed her in the co-driver's seat of the Koenigsegg, then bent down to fasten her seatbelt. He turned to start the car, and while doing so, he dialed his assistant's number. In 10 minutes. Bring the household registration book to the Civil Affairs Bureau. He hung up the phone after delivering his message. His assistant, Chen Heng, on the other end, thought his phone had been stolen. 10 minutes later. When Chen Heng saw the woman getting out of the co-driver's seat of the Koenigsegg at the entrance of the Civil Affairs Bureau, his mouth dropped open in shock, wide enough to fit an egg. Lu Yu tossed the car keys to Chen Heng and took the household registration book from his hand. He then grabbed Su Wan Ci's hand and walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau. 15 minutes later, the two emerged again. Chen Heng had managed to calm down his almost exploding state of mind. On the steps at the entrance, Su Wan Ci looked at the two red books in Lu Yu's hand and asked, "Can you give me one of the marriage certificates?" Lu Yu handed her one, but when Su Wan Ci reached for it, he pinched the edge of the certificate, not letting go. He looked into her eyes, a playful smile tugging at his lips. "Do you want to keep it for the divorce?" Su Wan Ci pressed her lips, exerted a bit of force with her hand, and yanked the certificate out of his grip. She lowered her eyes and placed the certificate in her bag, her expression very calm. "When Mr. Liu wants a divorce after a while, just let me know." Lu Yu let out a light chuckle. His mood seemingly changing slightly. Su Wan Ci was busy taking out her phone and didn't see his expression. She only sensed that his aura had inexplicably cooled down. Lu Yu tossed her a set of keys, his tone lighter. "Huating Manor, our marital home." After saying that, he didn't spare another glance at the woman beside him. He stepped down from the steps, got into the car, and drove away.